Have you ever had one of those late-night thoughts that just keeps you up? You know, the one where you're trying to piece together everything you learned in science class with everything you grew up hearing in religious study? Here's the big one. If Prophet Adam was the first human created by God, then who are these guys? You know, the ones whose fossils we find buried in ancient layers of earth, dating back millions of years? Scientists call them early humans or hominids. They walked upright, crafted stone tools, and even mastered fire long before the first sparks of modern civilization. But if Adam was truly the first, why are there fossils that are supposedly way older than the records of Adam in Scripture? Is one side wrong, or could they both be right at the same time? Before you jump to any conclusions, let's take a second to look at what science actually says and what religion actually teaches. This isn't a debate to see who wins. We're going to look at two perspectives: the scientific view focused on fossils, genetics, and archaeology, and the religious view centered on revelation and holy texts. This video won't tell you what to believe, because even scholars and scientists are still deep in discussion about this. It's a bit of a deep dive today, but I promise if you stick with me until the end, you'll walk away with a much richer understanding of this massive mystery. Our goal is simple. Let's expand our horizons together. Let's start with the physical evidence, the stuff we can actually touch and measure. From a scientific perspective, humans didn't just pop into existence looking exactly like we do now. It was a long, incredibly slow process that took millions of years. We call this human evolution. It's a theory that explains how modern humans developed from ape-like ancestors through a series of physical and behavioral changes over eons. According to the fossil record, the story starts with a group called Australopithecus. These beings lived about 4 million years ago in Africa. They were small, and their brains weren't much bigger than a modern chimp's. But they had one game-changing trait. They started walking on two legs. This is called bipedalism. The most famous fossil from this era is Lucy, discovered in Ethiopia. Looking at her bones, scientists can see how her hips and legs were built for walking upright, even though her face and jaw still looked very much like an ape's. From this lineage, we eventually see the rise of the Homo genus, the same genus we belong to today. Unlike their ancestors, these early Homo species had larger brains, used tools, and lived much more complex lives. Now this is where the plot thickens. The Homo genus wasn't just one single line. It was a whole family tree of different species living at different times and places. Some survived for hundreds of thousands of years, while others went extinct, leaving only fossilized footprints for us to find. Three names usually dominate this conversation: Homo erectus, Neanderthals, and Homo sapiens. Homo erectus appeared about 1.9 million years ago. Their name literally means upright man. They were the first to really leave Africa and spread into Asia, including Indonesia, where the famous Java man fossils were found. They were pretty advanced. They had better tools and knew how to control fire. Then come the Neanderthals, living in Europe and Western Asia from about 400,000 to 40,000 years ago. They were stocky, powerful, and built for the Ice Age. Evidence shows they were socially complex. They cared for their sick and even buried their dead with rituals. Finally, we have Homo sapiens. That's us. We showed up about 300,000 years ago in Africa, with bigger brains, the ability to think in symbols, and a language capacity that surpassed everyone else. Imagine this. For a while, sapiens and Neanderthals actually lived on Earth at the same time. Genetic tests even show that our ancestors occasionally interbred with them. So if science says we evolved over hundreds of thousands of years, where does the first human actually fit in? This leads us to a fascinating scientific concept that sounds surprisingly biblical. Scientists use genetics to trace our ancestry back through time using two specific markers: mitochondrial DNA, passed from mothers to children, and the Y chromosome, passed from fathers to sons. By tracking mutations over generations, they found a common point of origin for everyone alive today. They call these individuals mitochondrial Eve and Y chromosomal Adam. Now, before you say, aha, proof, there's a catch. These two didn't necessarily know each other. In fact, they likely lived tens of thousands of years apart. They weren't the only humans alive at the time. They just happened to be the ones whose genetic lines survived to the present day. It's a scientific Adam and Eve story, but the meaning is totally different from the religious one. This brings us to our core question. How does this long, fossil-filled history square with the story of Prophet Adam? Are we talking about the same person or two completely different realities? Let's switch gears and look at the religious side. In the Islamic tradition, the story of Adam is one of direct, divine creation. He wasn't the result of a million-year biological process. He was created by God from the earth. The Quran describes how Allah fashioned Adam from clay, shaped him, and then breathed life into him. This was a unique, miraculous event. One of the most powerful parts of the story is when Allah commands the angels to prostrate before Adam to honor his special status. Only Iblis, or Satan, refused, believing he was superior because he was made of fire, while Adam was made of earth. Adam and his wife Eve, Hawa, were placed in a garden of bliss until they were tempted to eat from a forbidden tree. After that, they were sent to earth. In this view, Adam is not just the first prophet, he is the ancestor of all humanity. He represents the beginning of the human story as we know it, a story of consciousness, morality, and a relationship with the divine. But here's the million-dollar question. Does first human mean the first biological creature with two legs, or does it mean something deeper? Interestingly, the answer isn't a monolith, even among religious scholars. The most common view, especially among classical scholars, is literal. Adam was the very first human, physically and spiritually. Before him, there was nothing like a human on Earth. They base this on a direct reading of the texts. However, some contemporary scholars and thinkers suggest a different possibility. They argue that perhaps biological, man-like creatures existed for ages, the beings science finds in caves, but Adam was the first to be given a soul, a sophisticated intellect, and the capacity for language. He was the first Khalifah, or vicegerent on Earth. In this interpretation, first doesn't refer to the biological timeline, but to the beginning of spiritual accountability and divine revelation. Of course, this is a heavy topic of debate. Many scholars worry that trying to sync scripture with science might dilute the original message. It shows that even within the faith, there is a space for deep, intellectual curiosity about how the physical world we see through a microscope matches the spiritual world we know through faith. There's another mysterious piece to this puzzle found in ancient commentaries. Some Islamic traditions suggest that before Adam, there were other inhabitants of Earth. Many scholars identify these as the jinn, who lived here long before humans and caused such chaos that angels were sent to restore order. Others mention even more obscure groups like the Hin and Bin. While these aren't mentioned directly in the Quran in detail, they exist in the tafsir, or scholarly explanations. These accounts hint that Earth had a long history before Adam ever set foot on it. Whether these pre-Adam beings correlate to the Neanderthals or Homo erectus is purely speculative, but it shows that the idea of beings before us isn't actually foreign to religious thought. It's a reminder that we should be careful not to assume our current understanding is the only one that has ever existed. So, where does that leave us? Science gives us a story of bones, DNA, and gradual change. Religion gives us a story of purpose, soul, and divine intervention. Can they live together? Many Muslim scientists and thinkers believe so. They suggest that science answers the how, the physical mechanisms of the universe, while religion answers the why, the purpose of our existence. Some see the evolution of the body as a natural process that God used, culminating in the special creation of Adam's soul. Others prefer to keep them completely separate, respecting the boundaries of each field. There's no single answer that everyone agrees on, and honestly, that's okay. This is one of the greatest mysteries of our existence. Instead of forcing a conflict, maybe the most beautiful path is to appreciate both, the rigor of scientific discovery and the profound depth of spiritual truth. Science humbles us with the scale of time. Religion humbles us with the weight of our responsibility. So, who came first? It might depend on whether you're asking about the body or the soul. What do you think? Are you leaning toward the scientific timeline, the traditional religious narrative, or a mix of both? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Keep it respectful. We're all here to learn. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to subscribe. Next time, we're going to look closer at a specific discovery right here in Indonesia that changed the way the whole world thinks about human history. You don't want to miss it. See you in the next one.